This presentation we're going to talk about chromatics. When we talk about chromatics, we're obviously talking about the chromatic scale. The chromatic scale is every note on the keyboard, white and black keys, from one note to the next octave up. These are 12 unique tones between those two octaves, so basically the palette of any composer or musician is going to be these 12 unique tones that appear in the octave. Each interval between those tones is a minor second or a half step, which we know is the smallest interval in Western music, and therefore it's a very dissonant scale. It sounds, if I start playing on C and I move up every key, so we're going to start on C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and so on, up all 12 notes, you're going to hear the chromatic scale. The balloon rising into the air sound and then coming down from C back down to the other C. So I'm just playing from that low C up the octave to the other C, every note in between. When we're looking at the keyboard, I think it's important that you know what the notes on the keyboard are, and it is also going to help us understand some scales and other things as we move forward. So we've got the white keys, and there's sets of black keys in between those in groups of 2 and 3. When you want to figure out what note you're starting on, the best thing to do is to start with the group of 2 black keys, which are right here, and go to the white key that's just to the left, and that will be C. Now, if you go to that key in the very middle of the keyboard, most often that is considered middle C because it's right in the middle. And then as you go to the right, we're going to go up the alphabet until we get to G, G being the last note of the musical alphabet, and then we restart at the beginning with A, B, and then we get to C, and then you would start that whole process over again. Now, the black keys, well, before we get to that, from C to C, since there are 8 keys in between there, or that's the 8th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we call that an octave. So there are basically 7 unique sounds in a scale, and then the repeated note at the top would be number 8, and that's where you get the word octave from, the ocho. The black keys are also known as enharmonic keys. It means that there can be either sharp or flat versions of the notes that surround them. So if we're talking about the sharp notes, the sharp raises the pitch of a letter name, so the sharp versions are to the right or a little bit higher than that. So you can see next to C we have C sharp, D, D sharp, which is a little higher. There is nothing between E and F. We go on to, again, to the right as the sharps, and then B to C, there is no key in between. Or we could have flat versions, which are a little bit lower. A flat lowers the sound, so that would be to the left of the key. So coming back down from the top, we've got C, B, B flat, A flat, G. Okay, so and so on and so forth. So we can say that those keys have kind of 2 different names. And when 2 notes that have the same exact pitch have different names, that's called enharmonics. So if I were to play F sharp, is enharmonic with G flat. Okay, I played an F sharp, I played a G flat, it's the same key on the keyboard, and it's the same exact sound that we hear. Another way to think about chromaticism, or the chromatics, is by this thing I invented called the ladder of chromaticism. I have it starting from A, going all the way back up to A at the top, and this would be all 12 steps, or half steps in the chromatic scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we repeat A again at the top. The enharmonic notes are listed there, for instance D sharp and E flat, and then if you notice between B and C and E and F, there is no sharp or flat between them, very similar to what we looked at on the keyboard, right? A whole step can be determined by starting on one rung, then skipping to the next rung after that. So if we started on A, we would skip a rung to B. That would be considered a whole step. Or from B to C sharp, that would be another whole step. We're skipping one in between. It's very important though when we're talking about seconds that we're using adjacent letter names. We wouldn't want to say it's B to D flat is a second, even though those are enharmonically equivalent. To be a second, it needs to be from B to C, or from D to E, E to F sharp, so on and so forth. Okay? But wait, there's more. Advanced enharmonics. Notes that don't have black keys between them can still be raised or lowered. For instance, the note F. We can consider that an E sharp because we would be raising an E by a half step. That's what the sharp sign does. So F could be considered E sharp. But also, since F natural is 2 half steps lower than G, we can also consider it a double flat. So G double flat 1, 2 would be equivalent to an F natural, which is equivalent to E sharp. Now, double flats are not that common, but they do exist. This is what they would look like on the staff. Our first note here, we've got E sharp, which would raise it a half step to an F natural, or our G double flat down 2 half steps would be F. Those are all played with the same key on the keyboard, which would be normally called the F natural key. All three of those the exact same sound, they just have different names. Why is that? Well, there are certain instances in music, depending on what key signature you're in, that it's more appropriate to write things in different ways, and we're going to see that the more we study major scales. Notes that have been raised by 2 half steps are called double sharp, and instead of putting 2 sharp signs, which gets kind of unwieldy, we use this little X type of thing there. So in this example we see C flat, which would be the same as B natural, which would be the same as A double sharp. Okay, so all three of those notes are played on that same exact key on the keyboard right there next to C. You can see that if we started on C, we lowered it a half step, C flat, same as B natural, or if we had A raised 2 half steps, that would be double sharp to get that. But it still all would be played the same fingering on a clarinet, the same note on a keyboard, and it would be sung at the same concert pitch by a singer.